Hello everyone and welcome back to another Pony&Wolf Productions video. My name is Visual Pony and today we are reading the story Daring Delivery by Vis-a-Viscera. It is apparently a daring do story that has no likes but a few views and seems to have been released quite recently. I am actually a little bit surprised that it, when I sorted my stories by hotness, as you can do on FimFiction, this came up on top above other stories that had quite a few likes. So, yeah, I am curious about this one. Also, the author is plugging their commissions page here, so you can check that out, but I'm not putting this in here. But you can also always check out our little, donation page down below and our merch store. And don't forget that here's also a list of those amazing people who keep supporting us. So, without further ado, let's get into the meat of the story because I'm certain that I am annoying you. Daring do ne like dinner. Daring do wrinkled her numbing brow and spat out another mouthful of snow, shooting a look back at the leg of hers that had been dragging in the light snowfall. Normally, it was a side of hers that she proudly attached her whip to, the whorls and straps of the holster like a clasp to the compass cutie mark on her thigh. It was a small slice of symmetry she always treasured. Now, the ugly scarring underneath the fur and the purplish bulge under that mark, one that sparked with hellacious pain as she'd walked, only reminded her of her shortcomings. She had no magic to fix the dislocation, no latent strength to numb the pain. She was the most famous non-princess Pegasus in Equestria, but right now it felt like a burden. So much had made her feel like that this housewarming week, but none struck as deep as this one. And the sideward glance she gave to the daring do-shaped imprint of her in the snow only proved how deep these wounds had struck.
"I'm not normally this sloppy,"
she lied. Even on 4-day-long benders like she'd been on this week, she'd always had a minimum of composure. She had to have some awareness of the area to ensure no pony took her by surprise. Caballerion or Aryazotl often feasted on weaknesses like, hearthwarming dinner. So the fact that it was a pyramid trap that had launched a knife into Daring's side stung hard. Even more than the wound.
"Come on, Daring. 2 more steps."
28, actually. And even with the frosty arches of her house's roof looming invitingly, Daring knew she might not have the energy to lock the door before unconsciousness took her. Another fit of coughs wrecked Daring's shaking body. The thin shirt and scarf she wore little salvation against the bitter cold. Even though she was happy to see no red in her ragged breath, Daring knew that just meant her blood was simply going to freeze over first. Inwardly, Daring cursed herself again. She'd hoped to curl up with a book of her own, the roster list for Caballerion's nefarious networks that she'd managed to nab from one of his hench ponies on Hearthwarming Eve. It'd taken a week of negotiations just to nab one, but the possibility of sabotage for his cabal was too tempting to resist. But with how heavy and hard Daring's heart was beating in her chest, she knew she'd never concentrate. As if to further show her helplessness, her injured leg buckled. Thankfully this time, her front hoofs braced against the snow and held, keeping her aloft. Her wings got into the mix as well, exhausting as it was to flare them. Daring's eyes focused on the door again, and at that moment, liquid resolve surged through her like lightning. This was humiliating beyond belief, and from that humiliation came determination. She'd lost too much time already stumbling home, with no treasure, but she was going to let a span of non-rigged land stop her now?
"Nay!"
Her mind spat. With another swift flap, Daring launched forward, and almost crashed into the side of her house. That would have been darkly hilarious. Wobbling slightly, Daring tested her weight, decided to just deal with the fact that her right side was shut for the time being and pushed the door open. Right into a room lit by a still roaring fireplace. Daring's heart jumped at the sight. She even ignored the slight prick of something heavier than snow bouncing off her side before clattering into the door jamb. Right now, she had bigger issues. Yes, Daring had this fireplace lit before she set out. But how was it still burning now, hours later? Had she been followed? Tracked? Her eyes swung from side to side, looking for any possible stragglers. Nothing. Well, except for the fact her table and chair had been moved in front of the fireplace, and that it was heaped high with salads, fruitcakes, and potatoes. Whoever had been here, they'd spared no expense in eating. And if they were planning an attack, it would likely have happened already. Thank goodness for small favors. Swaying dangerously, Daring made her way to the spread, deciding to get something solid in her before she passed out. Draping her whip onto the top of the seat, she slumped into it, and then nearly howled as her injured thigh clanked against the base of the chair arm.
Curse it!
She sobbed.
Being this fragile on heartwarming eve.
A quick look at the clock on her mantle, and it was apparently 4:30 a.m.
After heartwarming, it's just thoughtless. I should be fixing this wound, locking the door, finding out who left us here.
At least the third question was easy enough to answer. A cursory look at the table uncovered a card sitting on top of the fruitcake, one similarly labeled Number 1 Fan. Even before opening it, Daring's heart swelled as she continued to read. The overly marked swirls, the bright blue ink, the thunderstruck cloud logo scribbled on its back. It could only be one pony. Well, more than one it seemed.
Just in case you didn't see the other card I left on the door, don't worry, no pony sneaking around here to wallop you. Do you think I'd be that careless? Well, I mean, Twilight and Pinky did, so that's why they're helping me with this gift. Anyways, we didn't see you around heartwarming and figured you had other stuff to catch up on. So, happy belated heartwarming, and I hope I'm the first to get spoke on it. Rainbow Dash.
The sheer selflessness of this gift almost made Daring's jaw hit the table lip. All this time she'd thought that Dash's journeys, fraught with wonder as they were, had ensured their paths wouldn't meet again after the Ring of Destiny. But that Dash went all this way, metaphorically and figuratively, to make sure she had something nice to return to for the holidays? It was unexpectedly generous of Dash. Perhaps this day wasn't so bad after all. Daring, with an almost dreamlike candor, set the card back on the table. Then, after giving one last lonely look at the still ajar door, and a mental note to make sure it was closed and locked later, the harried adventurer dug into her meal. The only thing that'd be more intolerable than her injuries was cold food after all.
This time, I make the comments because Luna is a big old meanie. I'll get my revenge when I have taken over the world. And that is where I need your help. Go ahead. Like and subscribe. Also share this video with your friends and family. And don't forget to check out my Sloth, Humans Patreon and merch store. Building an evil empire is expensive. I must admit, with how the story started out, I did not expect this outcome. It was fun to see that Daring Do, the adventurer who lives alone in the woods, comes home beaten and defeated, to find a meal prepared for her by her friends and fans. It was very heartwarming, and almost made me not want to conquer all of you and make you my servants that bring me food, toys, and provide pets. Now let me be, I have your demise to plan. Muhahahahahahahaha.